Let me tell you something quietly powerful about a type of person you may have never truly noticed. Not because they're rare, but because they're invisible by choice. These are people who feel everything. Every shift in tone, every unspoken disappointment, every tremor of love, sadness, tension, joy. And yet, if you look at them from the outside, they seem calm, collected, almost unreadable, like a lake at dawn, smooth as glass, hiding a storm of currents beneath. Most will never guess what lives inside them, because they learned, long ago, that showing emotion invites misunderstanding. To feel deeply is one thing, to reveal it is another kind of danger entirely. We live in a world that rewards expression, noise, visible emotion. Post your happiness, share your heartbreak, broadcast your victories. But there are souls who move through life like quiet observers, absorbing everything without releasing a sound. Maybe you know someone like that. Maybe you are someone like that. And here's the question that lingers like a shadow behind them. Why do some people feel so intensely, yet stay silent? Why carry the weight of emotion internally instead of letting it spill into the world? It would be easy to assume they're simply private, introverted, or controlled. But that explanation is too small for the depth they hold. Because behind this quiet is a story, a psychology, a survival mechanism built slowly, layer by layer, throughout a lifetime. Some of them learned early that vulnerability can be dangerous. They opened their heart once, and someone dismissed it, mocked it, or didn't hold it carefully enough. So they adapted. They learned to feel everything inwardly and reveal nothing outwardly. Not out of coldness, not out of indifference, but out of self-preservation. For others, silence becomes a kind of emotional discipline, a way to process before reacting, a shield against the chaos of impulsive expression. While the world rushes to speak, they pause, and in that pause they see what others miss. Psychologists have a term for this: high emotional sensitivity with learned emotional regulation. It means the internal world is rich, intense, sometimes overwhelming, but the external expression is controlled, contained, almost serene. These people do not lack emotion. They carry oceans of it, but they do not want to drown others with the waves. Instead, they swallow entire storms quietly. They fill with the volume turned all the way up, but they live with the sound dialed down to a whisper. People often see them as strong, stable, unshakable. What few understand is that their strength was built like scar tissue, formed to protect the softest parts of them. Even when hurt, they smile gently. Even when overwhelmed, they sit quietly. Even when their heart aches, they speak calmly, or not at all. Not because the pain is small, but because they carry it privately, the way one holds something precious. And here's where the psychology deepens. Sometimes their silence is not suppression, but reverence. When you feel the world so intimately, every emotion becomes sacred. Too sacred to spill out carelessly into noise and chaos. Too sacred to be turned into spectacle for validation. They feel everything, but show nothing, because their feelings are not currency. They are home, internal, protected. But there's another layer beneath this quiet emotional architecture, one most people never get close enough to see. These people are not empty, they're overflowing. They feel the disappointment in a voice that barely changed in tone. They sense tension in a room before anyone speaks. They notice how someone avoids eye contact, how a smile doesn't reach the eyes, how laughter sounds slightly forced, how a rhyme fine trembles beneath the surface like a cracking shell. They can read emotions the way others read headlines, and yet, they rarely speak about what they see. They hold their understanding like a secret, not out of pride, but because they know not everyone is ready to be seen so deeply. You see, people who feel everything but show nothing often carry a paradox. They understand others far more than others understand them. They are the mirrors of the world, reflecting everyone's emotions but revealing almost none of their own. This creates a strange kind of loneliness, not from a lack of connection, but from the lack of reciprocity. Because how do you explain feelings you never show, thoughts you never voice, Storms you never release. What language exists for inner worlds no one witnesses? They crave understanding, yet hide their wounds. They long for closeness, yet carry an instinct to retreat. They want to be known, yet fear misinterpretation more than solitude. This is not contradiction. This is complexity. Psychologists describe this as internalized emotional processing, where the mind prefers to feel and think inwardly instead of externally expressing. It's not repression, it's refinement. They process emotion the way some people write music, silently, layer by layer, until it becomes something meaningful, and only then, sometimes, do they share. But here's the irony. The world often misunderstands emotional quietness. Silence is mistaken for apathy, calmness for distance, self-containment for lack of depth. People say, they never show emotion. I wonder if they even care. If only they knew. These are often the ones who care the most, who lose sleep replaying conversations, who notice every small kindness and every small cruelty, who love quietly, fiercely, endlessly, not with fireworks, but with a steady flame that never goes out. Their affection isn't loud. It lives in gestures, in remembering the little things you said months ago, in staying up to comfort you even when they're breaking inside, in choosing their words carefully because they know how words can wound, in showing up when it matters most, even if they don't announce it. Their love is not spectacle, it's presence. And presence doesn't need applause. But with this quiet emotional depth comes a cost. They rarely receive the level of understanding they give. People come to them for comfort, for listening, for stability, for that soft space where emotion can breathe without judgment. They become safe harbors for others. Yet few think to ask what storms they themselves are weathering. They are the ones people confess their hearts to, but no one asks what's in their heart. They're the ones who hold others together, but fall apart in private. A silent strength like this looks effortless from the outside, but inside, it requires energy, resilience, constant emotional digestion. They are both shield and sponge, absorbing everything while protecting everyone. And sometimes, the weight becomes too heavy to carry alone. But they still do. Not because they must, but because they don't know how not to. They were built to feel, trained to endure, conditioned to remain calm in emotional chaos. It is their gift. It is their curse. And still, beneath all that quiet, beneath all that composure, lives a soul that aches to be understood without explanation. One look, one sentence, one person who truly sees, and the dam inside them could crack open like light through glass. There is a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when someone who feels everything but shows nothing finally reaches emotional capacity. It doesn't look like an explosion. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's a quiet collapse. They withdraw a little. Their responses shorten. Their presence fades like the dimming of a light bulb. No one notices until the room is dark. To others, it seems like nothing changed. But inside, everything did. Because people like this don't break suddenly. They erode slowly, piece by piece, thought by thought, emotion by emotion. They hold the world together until they can't. They give more than they have until they're empty. They absorb pain until it becomes part of their bloodstream. And even then, they don't ask for help. Not because they don't need it, but because they don't believe anyone would truly understand. Their wounds are invisible because they train themselves to hide them. They learned long ago that vulnerability wasn't always met with care. Sometimes it was met with judgment, confusion, or indifference. So they adapted. They built emotional armor out of composure. They learned to swallow words instead of release them. They mastered the art of appearing fine, and people believed them. But here's the truth. The most silent people often have the loudest minds. Inside, their thoughts don't whisper, they roar. They replay conversations for hours, analyzing tone, micro-expressions, unspoken meanings. They feel guilt for things that were never their fault. They care so deeply it tires them. They love so hard it scares them. They notice everything, and it overwhelms them. Their mind is a room that never stops echoing. Psychologists call this high emotional sensitivity with controlled expression, a temperament that feels deeply but filters behavior. It's a survival mechanism, a way to exist without drowning, because if they expressed every feeling they carried, if they opened the floodgates, if they let the world hear the full volume of their heart, it would be too much for them, for others, for everyone. So they ration emotion like oxygen. They release only what's necessary, never too heavy, never too raw, never too real. And yet, behind that controlled exterior is someone who wishes, just once, they could be soft without fear, messy without guilt, seen without disguise. Someone who dreams of the kind of connection where they don't need to translate their soul into small safe pieces, where they can say, "I'm not fine. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I feel too much." And instead of confusion or dismissal, they'd receive understanding, maybe even relief. Because sometimes the greatest desire of emotionally quiet people isn't to speak, it's to be recognized without speaking. Just one person who reads their silence like a sentence, who hears the tremor beneath him okay, who sees the storm behind the calm. One person who says, "I know you're holding more than you show. You don't have to hide with me." Most of all, they want a place where their depth is not too much, where their sensitivity is not a burden, where their stillness is not mistaken for indifference, where everything they feel, but never show, finally finds room to exist, breathe, and be held gently. Because what they hide is not weakness. It is power. It is tenderness. It is an entire emotional universe. Not everyone deserves access to it, but someone does. There comes a chapter in the lives of people who feel everything but show nothing. A chapter of quiet endurance, not dramatic suffering, not public breakdowns, but the kind of ache that grows in the spaces no one looks. They wake up, put on the same controlled expression, move through life with stable, gentle presence, answer questions with, and the world believes them. Because emotional silence is convincing, they have trained their voice to remain steady even when their heart is shaking. They've learned to smile through heaviness, to keep conversations light while their thoughts run deep like currents under ice. And the world, comfortable with surface-level calm, never suspects the depth beneath it. It's easier that way, for everyone except them. They say nothing when something hurts, not because they're okay, but because they don't know where to put the pain. They sit quietly in rooms full of laughter, thinking of things they could say but swallowing every word like it's safer left inside. They apologize for being emotional, even when their emotions never leave their lips. They worry about burdening others, even when they themselves are drowning in what others cannot see. There is a special kind of exhaustion reserved for people like this, not from expression, but from holding it all in. Their soul becomes a container, a storage of every emotion unspoken, every fear unresolved, every sadness unshared. And containers, eventually, get heavy. But here is where the story shifts, because emotional intensity, when hidden, doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes creative energy. It becomes intuition. It becomes insight into the hearts of others. Pain becomes wisdom. Silence becomes vision. Psychologists call this high affective depth, a capacity to feel emotion not as moments, but as landscapes. While others experience sadness like rain, these people experience it like the whole sky. They don't feel happiness, they feel sunlight. They don't feel disappointment, they feel collapse. They don't feel love, they feel devotion. And yes, it's overwhelming, but it's also extraordinary. Because sensitivity is not fragility, it's perception, it's awareness, it's emotional intelligence turned inward like a mirror. They understand people not by what they hear, but by what they sense. They can feel lies behind soft voices. They can detect affection in unfinished sentences. They can recognize rejection without words. They can read love in silence. Their emotions are instruments tuned to precisely. They hear what others miss. But this sensitivity, paired with silence, creates a life lived between worlds. The inner world, rich and vast. The outer world, calm and controlled. Between them, a boundary built not from ice, but from caution. Because once, they opened their heart carelessly, and it hurt. Once, they showed emotion freely, and were misunderstood. Once, they trusted too deeply, and were left alone. So they learned the art of emotional minimalism, not because they want to be unreadable, but because being readable once cost them too much. And yet, beneath the layers, the restraint, the calm exterior, lives a hope they never admit, that someone will look closely, patiently, gently, someone who will notice the things no one else does, the pause before they answer, the way their eyes flicker when something hurts, the softness in their voice when they care, someone who won't require them to shout to be heard, someone who sees the ocean behind the still water, someone who doesn't ask, "Why are you so quiet?" but instead whispers, "Tell me everything you never say." One day, slowly or suddenly, something shifts inside a person who feels everything but shows nothing. Not an explosion, not a collapse, not a breakdown, a thawing. A realization that emotions do not need to be silent to be real. That softness is not weakness. That sensitivity is not shame. That depth deserves air. And maybe, this realization is sparked by a person, or a moment, or simply by the soul growing too heavy to remain folded. But when it happens, it is gentle, like opening a window after years of stale air. They begin to speak, not with volume, but with honesty. Their voice may shake, their words may come slowly, their heart may fear exposure like light after long darkness, but they speak, and that is the beginning of freedom. Because the truth about these people is this: they don't want to hide, they just want to feel safe enough not to. Hidden emotion is not absence, it is containment, like a river held behind a dam, powerful, quiet, patient. And once they find a place where it's safe to flow, they open, beautifully, deeply, fiercely, not in fragments, in fullness. When they trust completely. When they love entirely. When they share the universe inside them. Not everyone will earn that access. Not everyone should. But the one who does, will witness something rare. They will see a soul in high resolution. They will hear emotion like music. They will feel devotion not through words, but through presence so steady it feels like gravity. And here lies the psychology of these people in its purest form. They feel more, because they were built with more capacity, more sensitivity, more awareness, more heart. Emotion for them is not noise, it is data. It is connection. It is life. Their quiet is not emptiness, it is depth. Their stillness is not cold, it is control. Their silence is not weakness, it is strength learned through pain. So if you ever meet a person like this, someone who feels everything but shows nothing, look closer. They are not unreadable, just unrushed, not emotionless, just careful with what they share, not distant, just deep. And if you are this person, if these words feel like your reflection on glass, know this: you are not strange for feeling so much. You are not wrong for holding it in. You are not weak for wanting to be understood. You are rare. You are wide-hearted. You are built for depth in a world addicted to the surface. And one day, you will be seen, not for your silence, but for the universe it protects. Not for how well you hide, but for how beautifully you feel.